Maybe Moss. Maybe. Alright. We are gonna look at a video about the XB-70 Valkyrie, the world's fastest bomber. And this is a Soviet plane. So, this was recommended. So, let's take a look at this.
This video was made possible by CuriosityStream. Watch thousands of high-quality documentaries and get access to my streaming service Nebula using the link in the description. In the fall of 1964, the Air Force begins testing a radical machine.
It is. Why did it say? Oh, I'm sorry. I misread the comments. It was talking about another link. I misread the comments or the video description. The video description was saying check out this video about a Russian bomber, not that this was Russian. My mistake. I misread that.
That looks like it's come from outer space. It's one of the fastest aircraft to ever fly, a massive intercontinental bomber that can outrun any fighter jet.
Wait a minute. But and yes, RoboSpartan, you put the link in the video suggestions. Good night, Ishua. Okay, chat. Am I not dyslexia, Eki? I just read through it way too fast and didn't actually process what it actually said. But chat, am I crazy? Or does this look like the precursor to the Concorde? Is this the precursor to the Concorde? It sure looks like it. It is. Okay, Crashmoon, I had, like, the design, the fact that it's so fast, immediately I thought, is this the Concorde? Is this where that started? Okay.
Fighter jet. An aircraft so...
Yeah, I mean, that is the fucking Concorde. Okay. So this is where that started. Okay, good to... I was right.
Groundbreaking, it rides its own supersonic shockwave. It was going to be the future of America's bomber force, but efforts to develop such an advanced aircraft would be marred by tragedy.
A fighter version? Jesus.
By the mid-1950s, tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were reaching an all-time high. Both sides had strategic bombers that could fly halfway around.
Well, Mannix, the drop snoot, I think for that bomber probably wouldn't, you couldn't because it had the fins on the nose. So dropping the snout, like it does with the Concorde, would probably cause some serious airflow problems. So that doesn't surprise me.
Around the world to strike targets deep within enemy territory. The United States had developed a state-of-the-art all-jet bomber force. The newly introduced B-52 could carry large payloads over long distances, and the soon-to-be introduced B-58 would dash to supersonic speeds. But in an all-out conflict, neither of these would really cut it against Soviet air defenses. While the B-52 could fly all the way to the Soviet Union, it flew too slow to stand a chance against the latest generation of Soviet interceptors. The supersonic B-58 could fly just as fast as any interceptor, but had limited range and payload. What the Air Force urgently needed was a new kind of plane, a heavy bomber fast enough to outrun anything the Soviets could throw at it. But in 1955, many doubted whether such a plane was even possible, because it would mean having to turn to some pretty radical solutions, like using nuclear power to extend an aircraft's range, or exotic high-energy fuels to boost the performance of jet engines. The most practical solution seemed to be...
What? Okay, did I miss something here? Did I miss something in chat? What are you talking about? Would you intercept me? Do I have to bonk you guys? I'm hovering over the bonk here. Okay. Okay, habitual line crosser. Okay. Okay. The crate. Oh, you're talking about the actual... Yeah, you know what? You know what, Ryan? You're not wrong. It does kind of look like the
Would be an
crate.
aircraft that would fly subsonically most of the way to its target before jettisoning the outer portions of its wings and fuel tanks to make a supersonic dash. But aviation technology in the 1950s progressed at a breakneck speed, with rapid advances in aerodynamics, engine performance, and exotic materials. And it meant the dash concept could be shelved in favor of a design that would cruise supersonically over its entire mission. So in 1957, the Air Force began development of a next-generation bomber. And the performance targets were ambitious. It would have to fly more than 3 times faster than the B-52, 25,000 feet higher, and have similar payload and range. And leading aircraft builders Boeing and North American Aviation were invited to compete on a design.
Yeah.
Boeing.
Wait. The dash cons? Well, maybe a little, perhaps. Actually, here's my question. Off the top, I can't remember. Hang on, I want to look this up. Give me a second. Hang on a second. Okay, never mind. Okay, answer my own question.
North American Aviation submitted radical concepts that looked similar on the surface. Both featured canards and slender delta wings optimized for supersonic flight. But Boeing was widely expected to win. After all, they had built the venerable B-52 and a series of iconic bombers during the Second World War. North American was the underdog. But during development, their engineers...
Well, just because you can build a good bomber does not mean you can build a bomber that can fly supersonic. They're like saying that Boeing is known to was the contender to win because they built all the other bombers. Look at what they built. All of their other bomber aircraft were propeller driven. Whereas now they were looking for a supersonic jet. And that's a very different, that's very different. So, my first blush is Boeing would not be the front runners if they had not attempted something like this before. And I have no idea about the other company. I'd never actually heard of them before.
Engineers stumbled upon research that would give them a huge advantage. A little-known report that detailed a phenomenon called compression lift. When flying faster than the speed of sound...
Fenris, I was wondering the same thing. I'm going to say no, because the SR-71 didn't come to fruition until, I think, when did that say? The SR-71, thank you, 94, thank you, Fenris. Yeah, so, this is like almost 50 years later, so I don't think the SR-71 was in response to the XB-70. There's too much time for that. Okay, it's continuation of the A-12. Okay, thank you, Jameson.
Shock waves typically travel away from an aircraft. But if they could be redirected underneath the wings, the shock waves would help generate additional lift. Using this principle, North American's entry promised to fly more efficiently at high supersonic speeds. And the Air Force was impressed. To the shock of Boeing, in 1957, North American's design was selected for development. The new bomber would be given the name Valkyrie and designated as the B-70. Engineers used cutting-edge technologies to build a 260-ton bomber that could outrun a fighter jet. To make this feat possible, 6 afterburning turbojets were fed air through a sophisticated intake. The engines were optimized to run most efficiently at high supersonic speeds, and they were powerful enough so that even if one were to fail, the Valkyrie could still maintain Mach 3 and complete its mission. but clever aerodynamics were...
That is some powerful fucking engines that even if one fails, it could still maintain Mach 3. Holy crap. And yeah, right yet? Mm-hmm. Satan, yeah, of course America said, oh, there's a sonic boom. How can we use this to build a better war machine? And they did it. And JC Christopher, thank you for the follow. Welcome.
Also key to performance, with compression lift giving the Valkyrie one of the highest lift-to-drag ratios of any manned aircraft. Variable geometry wings improved stability and enhanced compression lift. On takeoff and landings, they could be fully extended, at low supersonic speeds, angled downwards 25 degrees, and at multi-Mach speeds, a full 65. But flying at 3 times the speed of sound, kinetic heating on the airframe would be so intense, it would soften conventional aircraft aluminum. So engineers developed a revolutionary fuselage skin and circulated fuel throughout the airframe.
Interesting. Facing sheet with adhesive layer, honeycomb heat dispersion. Interesting. Jesse, I'm glad you love the YouTube videos. I hope you're enjoying the live stream versions as well. Not titanium. It's like, here it is right here. They did this honeycomb inlet that would function as a heat dispersal.
To cool the aircraft's stationary fuselage skin and circulated fuel throughout the airframe to cool the aircraft's interior. Even at an
They fucking liquid cooled the damn thing. Not a built-in heatsink, Ace. Fucking liquid cooling system. Like, this is, like, wow. Hey, Cryptic, I wonder if that's what the dolphin does. The SR-71 does the same thing. Oh, interesting. So that's probably where the where the technology for the SR-71 came from. Okay. Oh.
Altitude of 75,000 feet, the Valkyrie's cockpit was fully pressurized and featured an innovative encapsulated escape system. It meant that the bomber's crew of 4 wouldn't have to put on bulky flight suits, allowing a Valkyrie crew to get airborne in only 20 minutes. Capable of delivering a nuclear payload to anywhere in the world in just hours, the Valkyrie's performance was truly out of this world, and the bomber would embody America's strategy of deterrence through strength. The first experimental XB-70 prototype was unveiled in May of 1964, with flight testing to begin.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse, the technology we're hearing about, the technology and innovation we're hearing about going into this is so fucking impressive. The wing drop to utilize the sonic booms to create extra lift, the cabins having like full encapsulation, so they wouldn't have to wear bulky flight suits in case ejection was needed. The liquid cooling system of the hull. This is like, for the time period, this is incredible. This is absolutely incredible innovation for the time period.
In the following months, and it would soon be joined by a second and third prototype, both already under construction.
Thank you for the follow.
But from the start, it was clear that things wouldn't go so smoothly. During initial ground tests, there were so many technical problems, the first flight was delayed for months.
Let's see, what do we got so far? Ammonia fumes ingested into the cockpit. Ooh. Loss of primary hydraulic system, not good. Problems with steering brake and brake chatter. Hydraulic leak, hydraulic valves. Another hydraulic leak.
A laundry list of issues.
Brake actuator leak. Wow. And you know what this makes me think of? How many of you guys have seen the movie Space Cowboys? Any of you guys seen the movie Space Cowboys? Great fucking movie, by the way. Got some classic, outstanding actors in it, in its lead cast. Tommy Lee Jones's character said, like, just now when they were talking about all these leaks and everything, Tommy Lee Jones's character said something. in a scene that I just thought of right now. He was so all the characters played former Air Force. And we're two of them were like Air Force test pilots. One of them was a navigator. Another one was like an engineer. Yeah, Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones, Donald Sutherland, and oh god, I can't think of the last actor's name. Hang on, I have to get his name right, otherwise I'm gonna hate myself. Tommy Lee, yeah, Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones, Donald Sutherland, and James Garner. It was the four of them. Yeah, I got it on the floor. So there's a scene where Tommy Lee Jones is talking about he's checking out the SR-71 Blackbird, cause it's retired. And he said, I retired this very aircraft. He says, and this is how the plane's supposed to look. It, ugly on the ground, it leaks like a sieve, but you get it in the air, you lean it into the wind, all the seals dry up, and it flies like a bat out of hell. That quote I just thought of that quote where it talked about all of, like, the hydraulic leaks, where it's like, it just made me think, like, if you get it in the air, and do all the seals dry up, expand and dry up, and then it just goes fast. And yet, if you haven't seen Space Cowboys, I absolutely recommend it. It's a great movie. It's about four very retired former Air Force pilots and navigators and engineers going into space on a mission. It's a great movie. The cast have outstanding chemistry with one another. Definitely see it if you can. It's a fantastic movie.
Be until September 21st that the XB-70 was finally ready to make its first flight, and cheers could be heard as the space-aged bomber lifted off for the very first time. But celebrations were short-lived, because a hydraulic leak prevented the landing gear from retracting, and soon one of the engines surged, forcing a shutdown. As the prototype came back in for a landing, a brake locked up, causing a tire to blow out and catch fire.
Oh, jeez.
It seemed just as one problem was solved, more would emerge. On October 12th, the XB-70 crossed the sound barrier for the very first time, just barely inching above Mach 1. But as flight tests continued, paint began peeling off the fuselage and control surfaces, and soon the aircraft looked like it had flown through a sandblaster. The paint was patched up and the XB-70 pushed on to higher speeds. But with each test flight, it seemed the faster it flew, the more serious the issues became. On its 12th test flight, as the prototype reached Mach 2.6, the horizontal splitter tore off and was sucked into the engine duct, knocking out 4 engines.
Jesus.
The pilots landed safely, but all of the engines had to be replaced. Finally, on October 14th, the aircraft was cleared to reach Mach 3. But just 2 minutes in, a large portion of the wing's leading edge broke off, forcing yet another emergency landing. From that point on, the first prototype was limited to flying at no more than Mach 2.5. In developing such a state-of-the-art aircraft, there were bound to be setbacks. But there was a much bigger problem looming over the program. From the very start, there were serious doubts about whether the Valkyrie would really be safe from Soviet air defenses, because surface-to-air missiles introduced in the mid-1950s were quickly becoming the most effective way to guard airspace. And by the 1960s, the Soviet Union had thousands of them, which could hit targets beyond even the XB-70's altitude. The introduction of
Oh, shit. Well, that's not good. They're pouring all this money into this prototype, and already their designated target areas have countermeasures that can take it out with little issue. That certainly is going to throw a very serious monkey wrench into development.
ICBMs in the late 1950s also meant that nuclear war.
Oh, really cryptic. So the SAMs were just speculative and were not as effective as expected. So like the SR-70, well, okay. Well, how fast is the SR-71? what's the SR-71's top speed? Because this thing is topping out a Mach 3. What's the SR-71 top speed? Not much faster? Hang on. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, 3.5 Mach 3.5. So it was just no, it's 3,500, Robo Spartan. I just looked it up. Top speed's 3,500. So Mach 3.5. So, but the XB-70 was supposed to fly at Mach 3, but it's still having issues getting there. And if it could fly at Mach 3, well, the SR-71 could outrun it because it can fly just slightly faster than Mach 3. At Mach 3, maybe those surface-to-air missiles could catch it, because it's just a little bit slower than the SR-71. So while the Blackbird could do it, this thing is a little bit slower than the Blackbird, and the missiles might catch it.
Warheads could now be delivered much more quickly and economically. In the span of just a few years, missile technology had rendered the world's most advanced bomber virtually obsolete.
True, we don't know the SR, so it could have been even higher.
With the XB-70's strategic value in serious question, engineers scrambled for ways to keep the plane relevant, sketching out radical concepts to repurpose the bomber into a missile launcher, an aerial launch platform for spacecraft, or even a supersonic aerial refueler. Even more outlandish was a proposal that would turn the bomber into a Mach 3 supersonic transport. But these concepts proved to be a bridge too far.
And I'm guessing what it turned into.
And the program was dramatically scaled back, eventually reduced down to a bare minimum research project involving just 2 aircraft. But with millions already spent on development, the program pushed forward.
Concorde,
and
you mean to tell me? Concorde.
NASA joined the Air Force in flight testing, using the prototypes to gather valuable research into supersonic flight. By that point, the second prototype had proven to be a much more capable plane. On May 19, 1966, it reached speeds beyond Mach 3, demonstrating its ability to cruise at 3 times the speed of sound for over 30 minutes. After nearly a decade of development, one of the world's most ambitious aircraft was finally living up to expectations. But tragedy was...
Oh, and that one does have... Look! Watch the nose! Oh shit, you can't. Hang on. Okay, chat, watch the nose.
Ambitious aircraft was finally living up to expectations. But tragedy
would strike is coming
just
down.
Weeks later. On June 8th,
familiar?
the second prototype was joined by 4 other aircraft for a formation flying photo op. But minutes into the flight, without warning, one of the trailing aircraft collided with the XB-70, instantly destroying it and severely damaging the Valkyrie's vertical stabilizers. For 16 seconds, the Valkyrie continued flying straight and level before...
Jameson, thank you for the gifted sub. Yeah, Droop Snoop in action. I was still in the way? I thought I moved out of the way. Hang on. I was in the way? I thought I'd gotten out of the way. Here, I'll go all the way over here.
One of the world's most ambitious aircraft was finally living up to expectations. But tragedy would strike
you can see the
just
snout.
weeks later.
You can see the snout was
On
dropping. So you can see that the snout was dropping on that.
The second prototype was joined by 4. Without warning, one of the trailing aircraft collided with the XB-70, instantly destroying it and severely damaging the Valkyrie's vertical stabilizers. For 16 seconds, the Valkyrie continued flying straight and level before spiraling back to Earth. In a matter of seconds, 2 test pilots and a billion-dollar aircraft were tragically lost. It was a devastating setback for the program. And it meant NASA and the Air Force would have to continue research with...
Falcon, I think he said he hit the elevator. I'm pretty sure that he said that it hit the elevator.
But minutes into the flight, without warning, one of the trailing aircraft collided with the XB-70, instantly destroying it and severely damaging the Valkyrie's vertical stabilizers.
Stabilizer! This vertical stabilizer. My mistake. I thought he had said elevator. He said stabilizer. My mistake.
And it meant NASA and the Air Force would have to continue research with the much less capable original prototype.
Eh.
The XB-70 was an engineering marvel, and while it never joined America's bomber force, it still had a profound impact on the Cold War. Because in 1955, when the Soviet Union learned that the Americans were developing a supersonic long-range bomber, they scrambled to develop an equivalent. And it would end up as one of the most fearsome-looking aircraft ever built. But looks can be deceiving. In an effort to match the Americans, the Soviets ended up producing an embarrassing failure, one that they would keep hidden for decades. You can learn more about the M50's dramatic failure in my latest video, available right now on Nebula. Nebula is where you can watch more mustard videos, like my video on the legendary F-117 Nighthawk or the MiG-31 Foxhound. And it's where you can enjoy exclusives from other creators, like Real Engineering's incredible new series on the Battle of Britain, or nearly 3 hours of exclusive Nebula content by Real Life Lore. The best part about Nebula is that it's free when you sign up for CuriosityStream, a streaming service with thousands of big-budget award-winning documentaries. A recent favorite of mine is Finding the Graf Zeppelin, a fascinating documentary about Germany's World War II aircraft carrier, at the time the world's largest. You can learn why it was Germany's first and last ever carrier. Get unlimited access to both CuriosityStream and Nebula for less than $2 a month by going to curiositystream.com/mustard and use
At least he kept it to the end
when you sign up.
I know. Right, that was interesting. Although I am very surprised that there was no mention of Concorde, so maybe the Concorde wasn't taken from the XB-70? But goddamn, if that did not look the spitting image of the Concorde, along with its capabilities, I'm really surprised that that wasn't brought up at all. Albert, I know. But you know what? I imagine this probably happened more times than we realize. I can imagine that spending billions to create a prototype and losing it on tests happens more than we know. It took inspiration from it as a large supersonic aircraft. And Crash and Burn, that makes absolute sense. Because you can't look at that thing and not think, oh, that's the SR-71, or that's the Concorde. Well, I mean, Mannix, I have to wonder if it got its inspiration, or if maybe, Britain and France contacted this company, and they said, well, we've got this XB-70 design, and it can do supersonic for long ranges. Maybe it can be converted to, he showed that in the video where it's like converted to a transport vehicle. Maybe they want that. Maybe France and Britain decided to look at it from that route. So